We are getting closer to Bob. Or are we? Hey everyone, I'm Nikanak, and I make videos about everything I question and overthink, and today we're breaking down Season 2, Episode 3 of Twin Peaks, aka The Man Behind the Glass. So without further ado, let's get into it. We open up at Calhoun Memorial Hospital, where Ronette is in the middle of what I can only describe as a breakdown. She's left her hospital bed, pulled out her IV, and from the way she's reacting, I think she may have seen Bob again. Harry and Andy are already there when Coop and Albert arrive. Upon their arrival, Albert and Coop confirm a poisoning attempt when they find a hidden bee under her nail. Now, of course, there is some talk whether this is an impersonator, but since this was never made public, Coop knows it's the same killer, not a copycat. He then tells Albert and Harry about the giant. He lays out the 3 clues he was given, and the reactions are exactly what you'd expect. Harry is somewhat open to it, and Albert is, as ever, the skeptic. So no surprises there. Now, following up on last night's phone call, Donna goes to Harold's house. She hasn't even had the chance to knock before he opens the door. And finally, we meet Harold. Now, since he is agoraphobic, the first thing that jumps out is how hungry he is for conversation and human contact, and it makes me wonder, was his last visitor Laura? This whole time, was he all by himself? I mean, it has been technically 2 weeks, but still, 2 weeks can be a lot when you're cooped up inside your house. But I digress. He welcomes Donna, who is curious about his bond with Laura. He explains that Laura directed him to contact her because she knew Donna would ask the right questions. And having met through Meals on Wheels, Harold became one of Laura's most trusted confidants. Donna then asks why Harold is a recluse, and he says what we already know. Now, it's interesting how Laura's diary mentions that Harold is actually afraid to go outside because he thinks death is just waiting around the corner. Now, given that he lives next to the Tremons, I wonder if he's actually afraid of Pierre. I know it might be a stretch, but Pierre does have this eerie presence, and I'm still not completely convinced he's a child or even human. So maybe Harold's fear isn't irrational at all. Now, when Donna asks why Harold called her specifically, he seems to pivot, like he was about to mention the diary but pulled back, either because he doesn't fully trust her yet, or because he wants to see her again, and knows that once she sees the diary, she might not come back. So instead, he asks her to place an orchid on Laura's grave, and while he's away getting the orchid, Donna snoops around and spots a piece of paper sticking out of a drawer. Harold catches this and immediately comes back out, but stays very calm. He tells her she's just as lovely as Laura described, and Donna, clearly charmed, blushes and promises to come back. Now, after that cringe-worthy scene between Donna, Maddie, and James in the previous episode, which I think was already hinting at something between James and Maddie, I wonder if the show is setting up an out for Donna through Harold. At the sheriff's department, Coop is going over the letters found under the fingernails. RBT. He believes the giant's clues and these letters are connected to Bob. Now, just letting everybody know, 2 out of the 3 clues said by the giant came true. The man in the smiling bag and the owls are not what they seem. Harry asks Coop about the giant, and Albert predictably doesn't buy any of it. Instead, he tells Coop that the letter found on Ronette was cut from Fleshworld, and that they sent Bob's sketch out to everyone from NASA to the DEA and came up empty. As Albert puts it, this cat is a nobody. I just really like how he said it. He also mentions that Coop was shot with a Walter PPK, James Bond's gun. So now we just need to find out who the James Bond fan is in Twin Peaks. As Albert is about to leave, he and Harry nearly clash again, but Albert unexpectedly stops himself and declares that he rejects violence, that he walks in the company of Ghandi and Martin Luther King Jr., and that the foundation of everything he does is love. He looks Harry dead in the eye and tells him he loves him. And Harry's face says it all. And I, like Harry, was not expecting this from Albert, but it's really interesting to see this duality in him, because while he is an instigator and openly cynical, violence seems to never be his choice. And the more I see of Albert, I'm probably gonna say something that is very obvious to a lot of people, but I do think that this cynicism, this skepticism, right, it's all a mask that he hides behind, and that he's actually probably a lot more tender and delicate, I would say.
Albert's path is a strange and difficult one.
Now, after he leaves, Cooper goes out into the reception and tells James there are no charges against him and sends him home with a warning to stop playing detective. Then Special Agent Cooper turns his attention to Lucy, and at first I genuinely thought she was playing Scrabble, but as it turns out, Coop had asked her to find every word containing the letters R, T, and B. Hawk comes over to help, and that's when this random Joe comes in. Apparently, he's Lucy's date, and his name is Richard Tremaine. He goes by Dick, and he works at the Horns department store in designer menswear. Now, I'm not saying everyone who works at Horns is shady, but given what we know about Emery, I'm just going to say I don't trust this guy at all. Now, after Lucy leaves for her date, Leland arrives and tells Coop, Hawk, and Harry that he actually knew Bob as a kid at Pearl Lakes. But this time he adds that Bob wasn't actually a neighbor, and this is me paraphrasing this, but rather a squatter, and his name was Robertson. Coop immediately connects it to RTB, Robert, and sends Hawk to Pearl Lakes to investigate. Leland also mentions that Bob used to flick matches at him as a kid and say, "Do you want to play with fire, little boy?" The exact same phrase Laura said to James. Now, assuming Harry filled Coop in on what James told him back in episode 1, Special Agent Cooper declares that Robertson is their man. At the Double R, Lucy is on her date with Dick, and she is visibly uninterested. And my immediate reaction was, well, if you don't want to go out with him, then why are you going out with him, Lucy? It's that simple. There's an Andy there waiting for you and who loves you. But as it turns out, it's been 6 weeks since she last saw him, and they used to go out every Thursday for 3 months. Lucy, annoyed that he keeps showering her with fake promises and the good old 20% discount, tells him she's pregnant. And this scene made me feel so bad for Andy. Like, it's Andy. Why would you hurt Andy? Why would anybody hurt Andy? And I really, really, really thought that they were going to be endgame. I hoped that it was going to be a miracle. So finding out she was seeing someone else on the side was a bit of a disappointment, honestly. Still at the Double R though, James tells Maddie he is confused by Donna's behavior and just wants to get on his bike and leave. Maddie comforts him by holding his hand, and then, with absolutely impeccable timing, Nancy Drew strikes again. Donna walks in. She sees it, tears up, and immediately tries to make James jealous by mentioning Harold and storms out. And honestly, with James and Maddie, I don't know what's happening there, but I do think that James is for sure going to leave, because this is not the first time he will mention it in this episode that he wants to leave. I don't remember if he said it in the previous episode, and so maybe both of them will run away and Donna will just be with Harold. Who knows? Over at One-Eyed Jack's, Blackie and Emery are out of their fucking minds. Blackie ties Audrey up and injects her with heroin, while Emery films it to blackmail Ben. Now, in this scene, we also find out that Ben was the one who got Blackie addicted to drugs in the first place. And although this is tragic, who cares at this point, because Audrey. And now I have this fear for her character that she might become addicted to heroin, and I wonder if Ben will really even care. Back at the sheriff's department, Mike, the one-armed man, is selling Harry shoes. He sees Bob's face on the wanted poster and completely freezes. He tells Harry it happens sometimes, then excuses himself to take his medication in the bathroom. While Mike is in the bathroom, Harry goes to his office where Shelley is waiting with Coop, and she tells them that she won't testify against Leo because she loves him. Coop sees right through it and calls her bluff, and the second she walks out, he turns to Harry and says, "Smells like insurance money," and that they just need to find out who has been spearheading this plot. Well, fellas, you won't really need to look far. Back in the bathroom, Mike is having what looks like a seizure or a possession and drops his medication without ever taking it. When he comes out of the stall, he says, "Bob, I know you are near. I am after you now." When Coop goes to see Ben about Audrey, the man looking for Josie and reporting back to Hong Kong, can we please get a name for this guy already? This is getting ridiculous, is there too, and very subtly hides behind his newspaper when he sees Coop. Coop approaches Ben, who is remarkably unworried, and as it turns out, Coop did pick up on the tuxedo clue from the phone call. He also directly asks if there is trouble at home, and Ben's response, "Well, Rather than showing any concern for his missing daughter, he insinuates something inappropriate is going on between Coop and Audrey, telling him men fall under her spell like ducks in a shooting gallery, and to park his jalopy outside somebody else's window. Hashtag best dad ever. Obviously, this results in nothing, and as Coop leaves, the man looking for Josie starts following him. Back at One Eye Jack's, the plot thickens. Audrey is high and unconscious in her room. A man comes in, and as she barely surfaces from the haze, he gives her a caramel and says sugar is what she needs, and then injects more drugs into her. Now in Blackie's office, we actually meet this man. This is Jean Renault, Jacques and Bernard's brother, who has been watching the security tape from the night Coop came to One Eye Jack's. He believes Coop killed his brother, and he came here for blood. We also finally meet Nancy, Blackie's sister, who is Jean's go-between. The four of them, Emery, Blackie, Jean, and Nancy, concoct an evil plan. Emery lures Coop in, Ben pays for Audrey's return without ever knowing who took her, Blackie gets her cut, and Jean gets Cooper. And Audrey, well, they can't let her live now, can they? I swear to God, if Audrey dies... Jumping back to the sheriff's department, Pete updates Harry that Josie will be back tomorrow morning. Coop wants to bring her in for questioning, but agrees to let Harry see her first, even though it's pretty clear Coop doesn't buy Josie's story one bit. Then Hawk returns with an update. There's a vacant lot next to the Palmer house at Pearl Lakes, and next to that, a white boarded up house with no name on it. Now Hawk also mentions Gerard, or Harry mentions Gerard. One of them mentioned the one-armed man. Coop is taken aback because 1, nobody told him he was there, and 2, in his dream, the one-armed man knew Bob. They go straight to the bathroom and find Mike's medication on the floor, and that's when the third clue clicks into place. Without chemicals, he points. All they have to do now is follow Mike. At the hospital, Nadine wakes up from her coma fully regressed. She is convinced she is 18 years old and worried about cheerleading tryouts. Ed doesn't know what to do with this, and frankly, neither do I. In another room, Coop hypnotizes Jacoby, who is very much his usual self, doing some kind of creative kahuna healing ritual with his wife. This was probably the biggest shocker of the episode for me. I genuinely did not think he was married, but I guess Twin Peaks is just full of surprises, huh? Now, under hypnosis, Jacoby describes hearing tapes, seeing a pillow over Jacques' face, the sounds of suffocating, and then seeing who was holding it. He says, "I know," and obviously, we know too. As darkness falls over Twin Peaks, yes, I have decided to be a bit poetic because my transition lines have been pretty redundant. Donna goes to Laura's grave with the orchid Harold gave her. There's an owl nearby. Is that Bob watching over Laura? If so, leave her alone, Bob. Going back to Donna, she apologizes for not visiting since the funeral and asks if Laura was sleeping with Harold, then quickly adds that Harold seems nice. She talks about her and James and asks Laura how could she be so smart about people and so stupid about so much else. She also admits she's angry because when it was 3 of them, her, Laura, and James, it somehow worked. Now Laura is gone and everything is a mess. And as much as Donna loves her, they are still trying to solve her problems. Now I do understand Donna's frustration completely. She does want justice for her best friend, but it's also true that Laura's death has pulled everyone into something they didn't ask for. And Donna is probably starting to feel the weight of that. But I also think once she reads the diary, her understanding of Laura will shift because she'll finally know the full truth. James arrives at the Palmer house looking for Donna, but she's nowhere to be found. He tells Maddie he needs to talk to someone about his mom, and Maddie, ever the comforter, listens, and one thing leads to another, and they kiss, and then they hug. And once again, like frickin' clockwork, Donna walks in. She looks at them in disbelief, cries, and then runs away. James, for reasons I can't fully explain, takes out his frustration on the Palmer's side table and then runs after Donna. Donna! Why? No voice shaming though, but still funny. We cut back to Maddie, who is crying because when people see her, they keep seeing Laura, but in reality, Maddie is just her cousin. And Leland comforts her through all of this. And while they're having that moment, the camera pulls back to reveal Coop and Harry standing in the doorway. They came to arrest Leland for the murder of Jacques Renault. Donna, still trying to run away, goes to Harold's house, knocks on his door, and says she didn't know where else to go. Which, maybe, go home? But instead, Harold invites her and comforts her. Also, a lot of comforting going on this episode, right? Now, while he goes to get her something to drink, Donna walks over to a beautiful orchid on the table, and as she looks more closely at what's beneath it, she finds Laura's diary. And that's where episode 3 of season 2 ends. Oof, what an episode. The stakes just keep on getting higher. But what about you? Let me know your opinions in the comments down below. And if you're still here, thank you so much for watching. And I will see you next time. Bye!